Guest speaker tonight. Bob Dodge retired from 45 years of family practice in Ventura, California on December 31st. He's been active in nuclear abolition work for over 45 years. This is the 37th year of his nuclear weapons community cost project. He has served on the national board of PSR and currently is the co-chairman of the Committee to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. He is also the immediate past president of PSR Los Angeles, where he continues his work on the board. He's also active in Back from the Brink, serving on the Organizational and Operations Committee. He considers this work a natural extension of his medical practice as a prescription for survival. More importantly, what motivates him is being a husband, father, and grandfather of two. So, Bob, if you're ready, you have the floor, my dude.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. And it's good to see Harry and things like that, and all of you who are here. I'm impressed on our monthly the committee meetings for abolishing nuclear weapons with PSR, to hear everything that's going on in Washington State. So a big shout out to all of you there for your efforts and things. And I know a lot of you as well have been doing this for a long time. Basically here momentarily. As Sean has mentioned, I've been doing this project for 37 years. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. Hopefully this will work, and Sean will tell me if it does or doesn't. Yeah. So do you have my screen up? I'll get right there. My screen showing?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So again, yes. So thanks so much and things. It's interesting. I started this 37 years ago. So basically 1987, 88. And again, we were in the midst of the Cold War. At that time, we had roughly 60,000 nuclear weapons shared primarily between us and the former Soviet Union. Again, and it continued to just spiral out of control. However, that was also ending, we were moving towards ending the Cold War, which happened in 1991. All right. Okay. Next slide here. Okay, now how's it going to move my next slide? There we go. So, a big part that really informs my work is a true belief of this statement: budgets are moral documents. This was a statement by Reverend Jim Wallace of Sojourners. I don't know if any of you know him. I've met Jim over the years, and he's a remarkably intelligent and outspoken person about social justice, environmental justice, economic justice, again, and also nuclear weapons. And his statement was that, nuclear weapons have no role. Again, budgets are moral documents. And I quote often, former President Biden, it was said that his father was famous for saying, "Show me your budget and I'll tell you what you care about," okay? Again, or what you value. And I think that's very, very true. So again, coming back to how much do we pay for nuclear weapons? Well, again, as I mentioned, in 1988, there were 60,000 weapons. The Cold War ended on December 26, 1991. The United States continued to test nuclear weapons with our final underground test on September 23rd, 1992. During that time, we were testing, and we had tested 1,032 tests between 1945 and 1992. So I'm going to present. So the number that I put out for our costs is a comprehensive number. I will just simply say you can't look at the United States budget and there's no line item that says nuclear weapons. It's really, I sort of say, it's a labor of love. It takes me hours and hours every year to get to this number. So you have to go, because a significant part's under the Department of Energy, significant part of the Department of Defense. Then there are other whole areas, and you really have to tease it out. The number that I use, I really try to make it a comprehensive. So we include everything from nuclear weapons testing, in terms of research and development of new weapons, I should say. We're no longer testing delivery systems, the environmental legacy cleanup, but unfortunately not RECA. That's not included in this number. Cooperative threat reduction, which back in the day was called the Cooperative Threat Reduction Act by Nunn and Lugar. It was a bipartisan act to control former Soviet nukes. So again, a comprehensive value. there are many estimates of nuclear weapons costs in the world. ICANN does a very nice test, and again, they put out this year for 2025. They said the nine nuclear nations were spending 100.2 billion, of which the United States was 50.6. Well, that number really is only a fraction of what we're actually spending. And they recognize that. I've spoken with them over the years because I was doing this a lot longer than they were. And they acknowledge they're only looking at warheads and delivery systems. They're not looking at the environmental legacy. They're not looking at nuclear missile defense. They're not looking at, Golden Dome, all these expenditures on nuclear weapons. And if we didn't have them, we wouldn't be expending. So for this current year we are in, which is, fiscal year, we're actually now in fiscal year 26, and we just barely are getting the budget together. But for this immediate past year, fiscal year of 25, again, U.S. taxpayers have spent $110 billion, 344 million, okay, on nuclear weapons programs. And so, again, these are, obviously weapons we cannot use. Every dollar spent is a waste of our treasure, is a waste of precious resources. And I'm sure each and every one of you in your communities can identify what are areas that you'd rather see these dollars being spent. What are your pet projects? What are your community's projects? Whether it's healthcare, whether it's educational projects, whether it's libraries, whether it's parks, whether it's, again, environmental cleanup. But $110 billion in excess this past fiscal year. What's not included, as I mentioned, it's not including RICA, and it's also not including again, it's interesting. Back when I was doing this in 2013, Edward Snowden released the black budget, that hidden black budget that basically was covered from public. At that time, was identifying that there was $52 billion in the black budget, and of that, there was over $9 billion on clandestine nuclear operations. So that budget continues to this day. You can actually find that for this fiscal year of 25, it was gone from 52 to 74, but you can no longer tease out. So I don't include that, but most probably that includes several billion dollars of added costs. So as we sit here, tonight and things, and you have your meeting again, we're spending over $209,000 a minute on nuclear weapons programs, okay, or roughly 12,540,000 every hour. So in this hour we spend together, we'll spend over $12 million on nuclear weapons programs. I use the numbers. So, for example, how I come to this figure, the United States, the population for the 24-25 census was 340 million. The average income across the nation is $43,289. Now, that includes every newborn child, every citizen. So that would be divided out. And that comes out to a per capita nuclear tax of $324. Now, if you make twice that, if you make 86,000, you're spending twice that. If you're one of our billionaires, you're spending multitudes more. So it just equates, but this is taking the entire population as a whole across the nation. I calculated also for the state of Washington, and this is so our nuclear weapons cost calculator is on Physicians for Social Responsibility Los Angeles. It's on our website. I've done it for them for years. It's also on the back of the website. But for your state, you're spending over $3.071 billion, okay, this past year on nuclear weapons programs. And I will say, moving forward, it's going to be a lot more. The Golden Dome program, which I call the Golden Civ, is going to be much, much higher this year, okay? There's already been a big thrust, funding of money added to that program. So the number is most likely going to be much higher this coming year. I also will just simply say, I mentioned that $324, which is basically every man, woman, and child. But what I actually do, I look at each state or each city that wants me to do it or community, and I look at what's your average income. So just for reference sake, in the state of Washington, the per capita income is 51,493. So it's a little higher, coming in at a 1.19 multiplier. So your per capita nuclear tax is $385 rather than the 384. So I do that for each community, trying to be specific. I also, as part of the social justice side, I look at the wealthiest communities in the nation. I look at the poorest, indigenous, Navajo Nation. I calculate their numbers each year, so what they're spending. I look at, when we've had, Flint, Michigan with their water projects. I look at what are they spending on nuclear weapons when they're not building infrastructure. So I will just simply say this number has been a very remarkable way of meeting people who don't always necessarily agree with you. I mean, you have congressional leaders on both sides who have pet projects. And you say, well, this is what you're spending in your community on nuclear weapons, and this is what you're not getting to spend on your particular project. So it's been a remarkable way to build a bridge, okay, on kind of both sides of the aisle over these 37 years. I did some calculations just to throw out for those of you, and I don't know who's from what part of the state, but your capital, which is not, again, your capital is at a multiplier of 1.06. It's not a huge population at 56 plus thousand, but you're spending $19.294 million on nuclear weapons programs. That should be a comma on there after the 294. So $19.294 million, okay, of your treasure is being spent on nuclear weapons. I've done several other communities there just to get you. So Bellingham, okay, Bellingham is 30 million with a population of 95. They're just under the national average in terms of tax. I mean, in terms of income at $42.9 thousand a year. Seattle is a huge number at $466 million, 908 million, thousand, excuse me, I'm sorry. So yes, these numbers get mind-boggling, but I'm just throwing them out just for interest. And again, if you have interest in other communities to be calculated, please reach out. You can talk to Sean and he can reach out to me. I have well over 100 cities across the nation that over the years have asked me to calculate their costs. When I first started doing it here in Ventura County, we presented it with a large check every year to our board of supervisors, and several of the board members that were very much in my in my fold and would come and we'd speak. So we got a big press conference. Later, we presented to city councils, each individual city, what they're spending. So it's a great way to kind of connect and put out for your community interests and priorities. The figures have also been used at pretty much all of the Back from the Brink resolutions around the nation have used their calculations in their whereas resolutions as they passed. I have the city of Spokane, okay, at 69 million, okay. Your Spokane County obviously is much larger and comes in at $174 million. Oh, and I missed out again, I got a comma miss there, and 566,000. So, yep. I also, your Hanford site is in Benton County, so, and again, I know when I do my writings and things like that and opinion pieces, it's the most hazardous nuclear county in the nation. So it's got that going for it. And here they're spending $69 million on nuclear weapons programs, which unfortunately is not really all the cleanup and things like that. I mean, I always state if we spent this entire $110 billion on cleanup and taking care of the nuclear legacy and taking care of victims, I'd be fine with that. But to spend it on things where we're standing, at the brink of nuclear war is just insane. So that's, again, the final number I calculated for your state and location. And then I just, at this point, wanted to open to any questions. I'm happy to have anybody ask any questions or comments or feedback or pushback. So thank you for paying attention and for being here and inviting me this evening.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, any questions?
What was the number for the state?
For the state, let me come back here. So the state of Washington is it's over 3.071 billion. Okay, 3.071.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm unable to raise my hand.
No
So
problem.
I'll just blurt. Robert, these figures that you've teased out for us, are those based solely on federal income tax numbers versus as compared to the federal allocations, the federal budget?
Well, so the large number, the greater than 110 billion, is from the federal budget. That's what's been approved by your legislators, our the nation's leaders. So that's what we're spending as a nation, and then the tax dollars are what you're spending out of your taxes to fund that.
Clear.
And
Thank you.
I release these every April 15th, just for reference sake. But this year I'm hoping to be much earlier on there so people can use it if they want to write op-eds or do whatever. So yeah.
George?
Bob, thank you so much for these figures. I think it's clear from Spokane. I think it's clear that the American public does understand that we're spending too much money on nuclear weapons. I think we can win that argument. But I'd like to go a little bit deeper into the role of physicians for social responsibility. You have such a powerful argument as a physician that the nation is sick, the nation is ill. And I think you've done a great job in providing a diagnosis. Now, after you, as a physician, provide a diagnosis on your patient, which is the United States of America, then how do you prescribe a treatment plan that will work?
That's a great question. So part of that goes from the standpoint, I mean, again, as a physician, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about families in my practice that I've just turned over to an amazing young physician. I'm concerned about their access to healthcare and inability to pay for medication costs, hospital costs, doctors' costs. And so, I mean, again, and we still have a significant portion of this country which will be growing as the Affordability Care Act expires with no health care, no health insurance. So my point is, these are numbers that could be applied to providing health insurance across the nation. There are many, many ways. Again, so it really comes down to what an individual's priorities are. But I think this particular calculation lends itself very well and very nicely to covering healthcare needs, healthcare costs, healthcare provision. So again, in clinics, et cetera. So I think it works out very well there. And I think I appreciate your question, George. For those of us, and I'll presume that you've been doing this work over the years as well. We do so many things, and we connect with people at different levels. Okay, because I have for years, when I first started, I did the old bombing runs. What if a megaton bomb has exploded over your city? So we did that. We talked about the devastation, the healthcare costs, the burns, et cetera, the casualties, and the long-term effects. And so that connected with some people. We talked about the environmental costs again, but to me, having done this for so long, it's a little bit. I don't remember who I ever said, but it was like taking a handful of mud and throwing it at the wall. Whatever sticks, if that connects with you, great. So in this case, we've got this massive, economic expenditure, and for some people, that's the key. That's what really brings them in. So yeah, we look at however we can connect with you. So yeah.
Robert has a question.
Oh, yeah, sir. Thank you this evening. I was wondering if you had any Space Force statistics in your figures. I used to be stationed out there at Point Mugu, and I was just curious.
Yeah. So I'm not sure I understand the question exactly.
If you just Are there any Space Force statistics in your numbers?
Space Force. I'm sorry, Space Force statistics. Yeah.
I'm sure.
So yes. So the Space Force is a new portion factoring in, because a lot of that, I don't know how many of you read Annie Jacobson's book. It's again, but she talks about a lot of the layers of, if you will, of space protection and things, and in her scenario, how every one of them failed, of course. But yes, there are some calculations as we're getting more, and I'm trying to tease out what is specifically for, ballistic missile defense. But to answer your question, yes, that is included, and it's going to be massively increasing, particularly as I mentioned with the Golden Dome proposal.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for our guest? All right. Seeing none. Well, folks, I put a link to the nuclear community costs calculator that Bob develops every year in our chat, and I'll be sure to send that around as well. Really great resource for all the advocacy work we're doing. And as Bob mentioned, if you have a question for him, I'm happy to get y'all in touch. So please join me in a little virtual round of applause. Okay. Kind of cheesy, but that's what we got.
Sorry.
Bob, thank you again. Any last words for us?
No, again, I so appreciate what each of you are doing. And again, what's and you're all aware. I always say we all have a role to play in abolishing these nuclear weapons. Okay, and it may not be a big role, it may not be a small role. It's just your role. So it's really important with the resources that Sean puts out and you all are doing to identify what is my role and how can I best pursue it. So again, so thank you so much.